This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin FREAKIN.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol live. It's a freaking Sunday. You're on early because it is yet another debate night. Tonight it is the Georgia gubernatorial debate between incumbent Republican Brian Kemp, Democratic nominee Stacey Abrams. This is their second debate. We already watched the first debate. I think it was October 17th. Warlord popping in here going, what the fuck? And I'm like, what the fuck, you're what the fuck? What are you what the fucking about? No Brazilian coup as of yet, but when we get to the news section of the show, we will talk about the fuckery that is afoot in Brazil. I have video of a pro-Bolsonaro congressional candidate or congressperson. I think they're actually elected, threatening voters with a gun in the street. Multiple accusations of voter intimidation going on in Brazil. Supposedly pro-Bolsonaro factions are intimidating voters. We're going to get into that. Unfortunately, Jair Bolsonaro had the early lead. I'm not sure what the polls are showing right now. Now, it was razor thin. It was like 50 to 49%. We'll see how this plays out. Then we're going to be talking about Twitter. Fuckery is afoot at the Twitter as well. I'm back. I created a new account. I have filed an appeal to get my old account back. I want not one of my sock puppets I've created. I want my original Mr. Justin FREAKIN Twitter account back that I had since like 2011, 2010, whatever the fuck it was. I want that account back. And apparently, Elon is promising that soon. There's going to be a board convened. In the interim, I created Justin without an I, just in FREAKIN. So if you'd like to follow Justin FREAKIN on Twitter, you can do that. Top of the hour, we're going to do the Abrams-Kemp debate in Georgia. Following that, we're going to do the news. Of course, the Brazil election. The Soul Stampede, which sounds like the name of a boxing or MMA event. No, over 140 people killed in a stampede in Seoul, South Korea. I think Warlord in the Discord called it a Korean crush. I said that sounded like a refreshing drink that you'd get at the bar. Maybe something that's got like a seltzer in it. Pineapple. A seltzer, pineapple, and some rum or some shit like that. As I said, we will be talking about Twitter, which was apparently Lula is winning. Cool. That's what we're hoping for. I don't know why Warlord followed that with a crying face. Lula up currently. When don't I make fun of dead people? I make fun of dead people all the time, Warlord. You want me to make fun of Jerry Lee Lewis? So Elon Musk buys Twitter, his fanboys, and the fact that they used Hulk Hogan for this meme, who has had his own inward controversy. For those of you listening to the podcast, it's from the NWO era, like right after Hulk Hogan turned into Hollywood Hogan, and he's spray painting an N on the side of a trailer. So we're about 5 minutes away from the Georgia gubernatorial debate. Stacey Abrams taking on Republican incumbent Governor Brian Kemp. The rematch from 2018. Where Brian Kemp barely scraped by and beat Stacey Abrams. Abrams not doing as well in the polls as she had been over the summer. She had been as close as a point. A point behind Kemp. Cicero, thank you for the resub. Hell yeah. She'd been as close as behind Kemp by about a point. Now looking to be about 3 or 4 points behind Kemp in the latest polling. However, that's still in the margin of error. What it all comes down to is turnout. And turnout in Georgia has been record-breaking for a midterm and on par with the 2020 presidential election. That bodes well for Abrams, and that bodes well for Warnock. Still, those are seats that I'm worried about, especially the Warnock seat in the Senate. Herschel Walker apparently still closing on Warnock despite a god-awful debate performance. I'm not high enough for this shit. You know I'm not high enough for this. So, this is going to be about the 30th debate we've watched this season. I can't even keep up with it. Just judging by what we've heard every other Republican say, we know Brian Kemp is going to mention fentanyl. You know, he's going to say the borders are wide open, and he's going to say that Stacey Abrams is for abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Those are things that Republicans keep saying over and over again. Oh, absolutely. Inflation. Now, we're not going to hear the same tired line that Stacey Abrams voted with the Democrats 98% of the time. This is a gubernatorial race. Heard that in every Senate debate. This Democrat voted with the Democratic Party 98% of the time. Oh, Jesus. Shocker. Just like I'm sure if you were elected, you would vote with the Republican Party. Maybe even higher than that. Such weird attacks, but clearly what it tells me is that Republicans gear their rhetoric towards low information voters that don't know what's going on. So if you were just joining us, we are moments away from the Brian Kemp, Stacey Abrams debate in the Georgia gubernatorial race. Perhaps you were new here, just tuned in for the debate. I would like to summarize my political beliefs for you in one phrase. I would give anything in the world to piss in Dan Crenshaw's open eye hole. 990. Welcome, thank you for being a freaking follower. Sup to you, my friend. We're getting ready to watch the Stacey Abrams Brian Kemp debate. I'm going to lay out as much as possible. The YouTube audience tends to appreciate when I don't talk over everybody, and even debates where I haven't talked over people, I've still gotten people commenting like, "Would you please shut up?" I know you're watching my fucking channel.
Hey Justin, are you trolling?
Always be trolling. Always be trolling. No, I will make my jokes, and then I will lay out as the candidates are talking, like I have been. I think I've done incredibly well at doing that. Let's see if we can find which stream it is. I do believe it is their WSB Now stream. I guess if I click on this one where they say they're hosting the debate, it'll take me. Correct stream. I think it's the Now stream I'm supposed to be on. Interesting. 90, my friend, studying the phenomenon of imperialism, nature, particularly that of ant colonies. I would love to talk to you about your findings. I'm Lenny, my friend. Good evening. So glad to see you tonight. RB, Warlord, clinically, my friend. I gave a shout out to everybody and a special hey to all you lurkers. Sometimes we have a hard time finding where they're actually doing the live stream on their site. I'm pretty sure it's this one, the WSB Now. Seems to keep popping. Commercial. Don't worry, I have the Sierra Club is hosting it on, or the Atlanta Press Club hosting it on their Facebook. So just in case, we'll also have their live feed from the Facebook I can take. We're not gonna miss this. We had a lot of trouble out of the Oz-Fetterman debate from Pennsylvania. Their audio was wonky. We had a hard time taking their live feed. Okay. It may be having a hard time because of like my ad blockers or whatever. Guys, I have no clue what's going on here.
This is on the ballot. Governor
that should be
Brian
it.
Kemp is seeking a second term.
And that's what I'm going to stay focused on, is putting Georgians first.
And in a rematch of the 2018 election, Democrat Stacey Abrams is hoping. We're getting them on the record about the most
Seriously,
important
they're having
issues
trouble
to
over
Georgians.
Well, my biggest concern right now is the economy.
The spending of my tax money.
Abortion rights is number one.
My biggest concerns are crime.
Live from the WSB TV studios in Midtown Atlanta, this is the Georgia Governor's Debate. Here's your moderator, Justin.
Goddamn.
For the Georgia governor's race. We are now just 9 days away from Election Day, and record early voting is well underway. Tonight, we'll be addressing some of the top issues driving voters to the polls in record numbers: the economy, affordable housing, crime, abortion, immigration, and voting integrity. Tonight's debate is between the two top candidates who met our 10% polling threshold. The incumbent.
This is really annoying.
Some of our questions this evening will come from our panel. Tonight, I'm joined by Channel 2 political reporter Richard Elliott, WSB Community and Public Affairs Director Candace Presley, and Univision Atlanta anchor Michelle Benitez. Let's begin tonight with
A different browser.
costs. So, Governor Kemp, if you'll start.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate WSB for having us tonight, and looking forward to the panelists and the questions. And I'm just honored to be here. I've been honored to be serving as the governor of this great state. I'm looking forward to talking about my record, but also looking forward to talking about my vision for the future. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the history of the state. We have the most people ever working in the history of our state. And we're seeing economic opportunity in all parts of our state. People have opportunity in Georgia no matter their neighborhood or their zip code. We've been focused on strengthening rural Georgia. We've also fully funded our schools and given a well-deserved historic teacher pay raise. We continue to be in the fight with our local men and women in law enforcement to go after violent criminals, street gangs, and human traffickers. And that's why I'm hoping to earn your vote tonight. And that's why I'm running for re-election, because I want to continue to keep Georgia the best state in the country to live, work, and raise our families. Thank you.
Now, an opening statement, please, from Leader Abrams.
Thank you so much to WSB. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you to Georgia voters. Elections are a choice between where we are and where we want to be. What does the next 4 years look like? In this Georgia, right now, people are feeling economic pain. And unfortunately, under this governor, the pain is only getting worse. But I look forward to leading a Georgia where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. And I want to land on my record to do so. When I didn't win the election in 2018, I got to work. I installed 181 Wi-Fi devices throughout the state of Georgia in communities that didn't have access to the internet during COVID. I paid off the medical debts of 68,000 Georgians during COVID to make sure they didn't have to choose between food and health care. I did the work I could to serve the people of Georgia, whether I had a title or not. But I've enjoyed a number of titles in Georgia: state legislator, small business owner, and Georgia citizen. And as your next governor, I will take the money that we have in our coffers, a record $6 billion surplus, and invest it in you. Put the money into healthcare, housing, education, and making a good living. But I will also protect our freedoms and our right to be secure in our persons, our right to control our bodies, our right to be safe, and our right to vote. This election is indeed a choice. And I look at my record and the record of the governor, and I will say that we need to see whether we want a man who has put the wealthy and the powerful first, or a woman who's only ever stood on the side of Georgians. And that's the choice we get to make tonight.
Tonight, we thank each of you for
I turned on the
being
closed
here.
captioning on their website, but it's really small. If you guys want closed captioning,
tonight's
whatever
debate
site
guidelines
you're
are
on,
very
turn on the closed
straightforward. Each
captioning
candidate
for
will have
me.
90 seconds for a response to a question and roughly 45 seconds for rebuttals. So let's get underway. And we'll start with inflation. And we know that Georgians are hurting with the crippling inflation. So the question to each of you, please, is what can a governor do? What would you do, please be specific where you can, or continue to do as governor to help Georgians right away? And we'll start with Ms. Abrams.
Thank you. The economic pain people are feeling, it's real. And inflation is actually worse here in Georgia than in 36 other states. In fact, the problem is that Georgia has some of the lowest wages in the nation. And because of that, we need a governor who's going to use her power to focus on the cost that a governor can control. Tackling affordable housing, which this governor has refused to do. Tackling the issue of health care cost. If we expand Medicaid in the state of Georgia and accept the $3.5 billion to which we are entitled, we will lower health care costs for every Georgian. It has worked in 38 other states, and it will work here in the state of Georgia. We can make certain that families can afford to send their children to school, whether it's pre-K, K through 12, or making sure they can go on to college and technical college by making technical college free again. But we also have the responsibility of understanding what is driving jobs away from Georgia. Under this governor, we've lost $150 million in investment. Music Midtown pulled out. We lost the MLB game. We know that the entertainment industry is thinking about leaving Georgia because of the abortion ban that is driving women away. And we know that this is a governor who has refused to do right by our people. As governor, I will not only lower costs, I will put more money into the pockets of working Georgians, of middle-class Georgians. But what I will not do is give tax cuts to the wealthy and the powerful. I will focus on our workers and our small businesses, putting them first, making sure that especially our minority-owned businesses and our rural businesses get access to contracts. A record $10.9 billion is coming to Georgia, and as governor, I'll make sure the money is spent fairly.
Governor Kemp, what can a governor do right away to help Georgians?
Well, listen, it's not just what we can do right away, it's what we've been doing. And this is why I want to stay focused on what my record has been, but also what my vision is for the future. Americans are hurting right now because of a disastrous policy agenda by Joe Biden and the Democrats that have complete control in Washington, D.C. Thankfully in Georgia, because we were open even when Ms. Abrams didn't want us to be, our economy has been incredibly resilient. We've had 2 record years for economic development in a row, record number of investment, record number of jobs, and people's salaries are going up. The problem is they're not going up fast enough to keep up with Joe Biden's inflation, which is why I worked with the General Assembly and the leadership last year to return $1 billion of your taxpayer money to you, to put into your pocket, to help you when you go to the grocery store, because eggs are 30% higher, milk and poultry is 15 and 17% higher. But we also did other things. We have suspended the gas tax since March, saving every Georgian 29 cents a gallon every time they fill up, to just help them fight through the 40-year high Biden inflation. We also cut taxes last year, largest income tax cut in Georgia state history last year, because we were open, our economy was resilient, and we were seeing record revenue. In the future, we want to do the tax rebate again, do it again in January to put another $1 billion back in your pocket, and also do a one-time property tax relief grant to help Georgians deal with the rising property tax values when their commissioners at home are not rolling the millage rate back.
To each of you, we know from our viewers that in addition to the economy, crime is top of mind. We know Atlanta is experiencing record violent crime right now. People do not feel safe.
So 538 has Kemp ahead by 6.9 points.
Going out for a run. So, Governor,
Nice.
what have you done? What can you do more? And Ms. Abrams,
Not nice, but
what
You
can
live in
do as well?
sexual anarchy?
Well, I would just say again, look at my record. You know, this is going back to 2018. I was the candidate in that race that ran on a platform to go after street gangs and drug cartels, because I knew it was a problem when a lot of other people made fun of that issue. They said, oh, this is just your normal Republican, you know, talking about being tough on crime. But if you visit every county in our state, all 159 of them like I have, and talked to sheriffs and prosecutors and others, I knew there was a gang problem. And that's why I ran with a very straightforward agenda to create a gang task force at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to join with the locals to help them in prosecution and locking up gang members, going after those
Remember that gang of dudes
and our community
fronted that
members,
jogger in the neighborhood in Georgia?
But we've also been in the fight with locals when we had civil unrest, when we had unruly people that were literally trying to burn our capital city down. This past session, we gave our Attorney General more powers to go after street gangs because of, quite honestly, local DAs that don't want to prosecute gangs. So we're taking that fight into our own hands, and I appreciate the support of the General Assembly to put more resources at the Attorney General's office. And if you read the papers in the last 3 or 4 weeks, incredible indictments that we're getting on street gangs in our state. We've also led the country on efforts to raise the awareness to ending human trafficking, going after the perpetrators, and supporting the victims, many which are women and children.
Leader Abrams, what would you do to help people feel safer?
First, I would encourage people to indeed look at the governor's record. Under his 4 years, violent crime has gone up. Gun violence has gone up. Guns are the #1 killer of our children. We have the 9th highest gun violence rate in the nation. Family violence with guns has gone up 18% under this governor. And his response was to weaken gun laws in the state of Georgia and eliminate a background check that kept thousands of guns off of our streets and out of the hands of dangerous people. We must indeed tackle the issue of street gangs. But this is a statewide challenge, and we have a governor who's only focusing on parts of the issue. We have to have a governor who's thinking holistically about what we need to do from cradle to career to ensure that our children are on the school to success pipeline and are not being drawn into street gangs because they lack access to resources in their schools. This is a governor who slashed $1 billion from education in 2019 and only restored funding to education when federal Democrats delivered dollars to the state of Georgia. We need a governor who's going to be a partner with local governments, not attack them for trying to do their jobs. And we need a governor who understands that we must have stability in housing, access to health care, and that our law enforcement cannot be the #1 provider of mental health support in the state of Georgia. Right now, our law enforcement is being distracted because they've got to put people in jail for being sick instead of going after dangerous people. I want to expand Medicaid to put money into the pockets of Georgians, but also put resources in the hands of law enforcement. I want to make certain that our violent crime goes down by strengthening our gun laws and making certain that we are protecting our communities across the state.
Governor, rebuttal.
Yes, look, I would just like to make sure folks at home know that it looks like this debate's going to be a lot like the last one. Ms. Abrams is going to attack my record because she doesn't want to talk about her own record. We are not the local police department. You know, I'm not the mayor. I'm the governor. I'm in charge of the state police force. We are working with the locals to go after violent crime, and we'll continue to do that. But the point here is Ms. Abrams that has said that she wants to defund the police. She wants to eliminate cash bail and have get-out-of-jail-free cards. She continues to serve on the boards of organizations like the Margaret Casey Foundation that actually raises money and gives grants to organizations that support and promote the defund the police movement. There are 107 sheriffs across this state that are supporting my campaign because they know I will have their back. They also know that I will be on the front line standing beside them to go after violent criminals, street racers, street gangs.
Yeah, dude, I want you on the front lines. Do it.
If I may?
Yes.
I guess he meant
First and
figuratively.
foremost, yes, local police are responsible for 90% of law enforcement. And this governor 4 years ago said it was not his job to help local police make certain that they had fully funded opportunities. It would cost $136 million to provide additional funds to our local police officers so they can make certain they're protecting our communities instead of working 2 jobs to take care of their families. We need a governor who understands that local governments need help now. And that, yes, while street gangs are important, so is the violent crime being perpetrated by dangerous people who have access to weapons because of Brian Kemp. I believe in public safety. I did not say, and nor do I believe in defunding the police. He is lying again. And I've never said that I believe in defunding the police. I believe in public safety and accountability. And I would have you look at my record: 11 years in the state legislature, 11 years serving on the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee, working with law enforcement, working with our Sheriff's Association, working with local governments. And I'm the only person standing here who's ever actually written standards of operating procedure for police departments, because I know what they need. And they need a governor who will invest in local officers as well as statewide enforcement.
I'll each of you have another rebuttal on this topic.
Yeah, well, I would tell people to please check the record, because we have given state law enforcement pay raises. We did one this past year. We did law enforcement grants of $1,000 to local law enforcement when many other counties and local jurisdictions wouldn't do that with federal COVID money, showing our appreciation for our men and women in law enforcement. And I would tell you to go check the record, because Ms. Abrams on CNN got asked the question, would she defund the police? And she said, yes, we have to reallocate resources. That means defunding the police. She proposed in 2018 eliminating cash bail. Men and women in law enforcement know who is going to be with them, who has had their back and will continue to have their back, and that is me. And that's why we have the endorsement of 107 sheriffs around this state.
As I've pointed out before, I'm not a member of the Good Old Boys Club. So no, I don't have 107 sheriffs who want to be able to take black people off the streets, who want to be able to go without accountability. I don't believe every sheriff wants that, but I do know that we need a governor who believes in both defending law enforcement, but also defending the people of Georgia. I have two brothers, one who's committed crimes and one who is a social worker trying to help keep people from committing crimes. But my brother who commits crimes should be held accountable, but my other brother should never be pulled over for driving while black, and yet in this Georgia, he is. I'm running for governor because we need complicated lives, and we need a governor who's willing to hold law enforcement accountable, but also be supportive. And yes, pay raises have been given to state law enforcement, but local law enforcement are experiencing shortages that are not being funded by this governor. And federal COVID money as a bonus is not the same as a plan for their investment, and I'm the only one with a clear plan to invest in local law enforcement going forward.
Thank you. Let's turn to our panel, please, and Channel 2 political reporter Richard Elliott.
This is a question for both candidates. Along with the economy and crime, one of the major issues is abortion. And Governor, I want to ask you first, while the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the subsequent implementation of the Georgia heartbeat law has support in conservative circles, recent polls show it does not have the support of a majority of Georgians. And they worry that the legislature may seek more restrictions this coming year. Can you say now whether you will push for more restrictions, support legislative efforts to create more restrictions, or sign any bill into law that would further restrict abortions?
Well, I would tell people that we passed the heartbeat bill 3 years ago. We are a state that values life. I understand people disagree on when that issue may be comfortable for them or not. They've known my position for 10 years, and I've been honest and transparent with them. But also, we've done a lot of other things to protect life in this state that everyone does agree with. We've done bipartisan foster care reform, adoption reform to make it more affordable and cut out bureaucratic red tape so that people can adopt a child in this state. We passed a landmark Mental Health Parity Act this past year, broad, unanimous, bipartisan support to deal with issues and suicides and other things out there to get people the care that they need, valuing life in our state. We've done the same thing back in 2019 when we did school security grants long before the tragedy in Uvalde, Texas, to make sure that we're valuing the life of our children and our educators in the classroom and keeping them safe. And so, you know, I understand that people can disagree on policy, but at least people know where I have been. I've been consistent, I've been transparent, I've done the exact things I said I could do, and I think that's a good reason for people to re-elect me. I mean, nobody's gonna agree with the governor every single time on every single issue. But at least I've been transparent. But I will tell you, my focus in the future going into the next session is going to be on helping Georgians fight through 40-year high inflation.
Let me press you a bit on
they
that.
canceled that show.
If the legislature passes a more restrictive abortion law,
He's got that swamp person.
Well, I'm not going to count on, say yes or no to any specific piece of legislation without actually seeing exactly what it's doing. It's not my desire to go move the needle any further on this issue. We've been dealing with this issue for 3 years. That's where the General Assembly was. I personally don't see a need to go back, but when you're governor, you have to deal with all kind of legislative issues that are out there. So we'll look at those when the time comes. But again, my focus is going to be on helping Georgians fight through the 40-year high Joe Biden inflation that's been caused by disastrous policies in Washington, D.C. And we're going to be, our first order of business is going to do another tax rebate, to do property tax relief, to help Georgians to be able to cope with going to the grocery store or the gas pump.
Well, the accent is specifically really southern Georgia.
We know that he has praised
Abrams is from like the middle part of the state.
It allows neighbors to make $10,000 by reporting on women. We know that under the law that he signed, women can be investigated for miscarriages and other pregnancy losses, and that 52 counties have said that they indeed will pursue those investigations because they don't think they have a choice. We know that under this governor, women are in danger. Georgia is already #1 for maternal mortality, and it is only going to get worse when women are forced to carry pregnancies, when 1 in 5 women in Georgia does not have health insurance before pregnancy, will be compelled to carry that pregnancy to term. And while there has indeed been improvements in Medicaid to provide access for women during pregnancy, on the first birthday of that child, that health care goes away. Brian Kemp does not have a plan for the lives of the women who are being forced to carry pregnancies to term that are unwanted pregnancies. But more importantly, he refuses to protect us. He refuses to defend us, and yet he defended Herschel Walker, saying that he didn't want to be involved in the personal life of his running mate, but he doesn't mind being involved in the personal lives and the personal medical choices of women in Georgia. What's the difference? Well, I would say it's the equipment. And I will tell you that as women in Georgia, we should listen very carefully to the fact that this governor has not only refused to protect you, he simply said he hasn't heard how bad it can get before he decides if he's going to do anything to help. As the next governor of Georgia, I will repeal HB 481, and I know we can do it because it only passed by 1 vote in the House, 3 votes in the Senate, and the women of Georgia and good men are going to stand with them to make certain that I'm the governor who gets that bill taken off the books and restores bodily autonomy to the women of Georgia.
Governor, is that true? Would you support prosecuting?
Good evening.
Well, let me just say, Justin, that's absolutely false. Again, Ms. Abrams attacking my record because she doesn't want to talk about her own. I would ask Georgians to ask for the facts on this legislation. If they don't have the facts, they should contact our campaign office. We will be glad to see you. Women are not going to be prosecuted under this piece of legislation. Doctors that perform illegal abortions would be. The thing is, Ms. Abrams
do not consult the governor's office for gynecological.
She can't tell you what
gynecological needs.
At 3 different times during this campaign, saying she wouldn't answer the question when she first got interviewed. Then her campaign came back, said she's for illegal abortion at viability, and then answered again. It's between the doctor and the women, the female. Even if it's 7 months or 8 months, if the doctor says okay, then you can get the abortion. Well,
the doctor's only going to say okay if there's something wrong with the kid and it's going to endanger the mother's life.
Out there that give them the go-ahead. I think that's just a tragic situation myself. I understand
it is indeed a tragic situation
than other people, but that's what the legislative debate was all about. But for her just to misrepresent what's in the legislation it's not being truthful to you.
I'm being absolutely honest, and so are the 11 district attorneys representing 52 counties. So are the sheriffs who said that they believe that the way they read the law, they would indeed be required to investigate. For those of you who don't do the law as a daily job, remember the show Law and Order. There's the law where they do the investigation and the order where they do the prosecution. What we are saying and what the law says is that in order to determine whether a woman's going to be prosecuted, she has to be investigated. And this is true. It happened in Texas, which has an identical law. We know that in Georgia, women are not safe from investigation. I have a sister who had a miscarriage. I was there the night that she lost her child. And I was there when she had to talk about the nurse who called to ask her about the state of her pregnancy twice. The trauma that women undergo after miscarriage should not be minimized, and it should not be investigated. But more importantly, in the state of Georgia, we have a governor who does not believe in a woman's right to choose. I have always been consistent. Since I became a legislator, I've been strongly consistent and very clear about my position. Abortion is a medical decision. It is a decision that should be made between a doctor and a woman. It should only be a doctor and a woman, not a politician who makes this decision. And I believe that a woman who makes a decision to have an abortion, if it happens late in her pregnancy, it is a traumatic experience. And it is deeply, deeply concerning to me that anyone would minimize what a woman is experiencing late in her pregnancy when she has to make a terrible decision. That decision should not be adjudicated by men in the state legislature, but by a woman and her doctor. And that is what I will defend, and I will stand in that space and defend women with every breath in my body, especially as the next governor of the great state of Georgia.
And Leader Abrams, if I may,
Good evening,
be fair,
Sassy.
The question for
This
you
is the Georgia
was, while
gubernatorial
polls show a
debate.
majority of Georgians do support
Democratic
access to
challenger
abortion
Stacey
rights.
Abrams
Most
against
also
incumbent Republican
support some
Brian
limits
Kemp.
on it. What limits would you be okay with if you were governor?
Absolutely. As I have said, abortion is a medical choice. And as such, it should be that a woman has the ability to make a decision until viability. And that decision about viability should not impact her life or her health. That is a decision that should be made between a doctor and a woman as a medical choice. I said that on Fox, I said that on CNN, I said it on The View, I said it to Teen Vogue, I said it to Elle Magazine. I think anywhere you look, I've said it again and again, and it is willful ignorance or misleading lies that change what I've said. But what I've also always said is that there should not be arbitrary timelines set by men who do not understand biology. This is a law that tells women they have to make a decision about their pregnancy before they know they're pregnant. And in a state with 82 counties without an OBGYN, in a state where women are denied health care, when 1 out of every 5 women does not have access to medical insurance, it is a terribly dangerous position to put women in. And it is a position this governor will only put women in because he defends Herschel Walker, but will not defend the women of Georgia.
Well, I would just say, for the record, you can go check this as well. There was a female state senator that actually carried this piece of legislation, so there were a lot of women that supported this bill. I understand people differ greatly on it. Again, Ms. Abrams failed to answer the question that was asked of her. But listen, I'm a husband and I'm a father to 3 daughters. I have been in the doctor's office with my wife and seen 2 heartbeats on an ultrasound. I've gone back a week or so later and saw 1 heartbeat. My wife and I have both had a hard time having our first child. She miscarried. It is a tragic, traumatic
What's called an emotive argument.
But that 1
has no
heartbeat
substance.
that we saw that second time we went back is our oldest daughter, Jarrett.
Isn't meant to pull on your heart.
Saving one last comment and we'll move on. Yes, please.
I actually wanted
I would have liked it better if he had went, fuck Herschel Walker.
I believe I was fairly thorough, but I will say this. The tragic stories of miscarriage should not be political fodder, but they should also not be fodder for investigations. And the problem with this bill is it does not discern the difference. It tells women that if you have a pregnancy loss, you can be subject to investigation so that law enforcement can determine whether it was a legal abortion, which is what a spontaneous abortion is, that's what miscarriage is called, or whether it was an illegal abortion, which should not be a term of art in the state of Georgia. Women deserve the right to control their bodies. They should not be worried about whether the knock on the door is a sheriff coming to ask them if they have had an illegal abortion. Abortion is medical care, and women are the only people in the state of Georgia being denied wholesale access to medical decision-making by the governor of Georgia, and that is wrong and should not be sustained.
Governor, 10 seconds, please.
Well, again, that's simply not true. And I hope that you will not let Ms. Abrams get away with this. Please fact-check the bill. Reach out to our campaign. We'll be glad to send you the facts.
Thank you. I'm up against a break. I assure our viewers we'll be covering many more topics. We're going to take a quick break right now. You're watching the WSB Governor's Debate live right here from our studios. We'll be back in 60
where
seconds.
we've had a commercial break. The debate. It'll be a 1-minute break. They're even telling us on the screen.
It's an ongoing pattern of violence. Herschel Walker.
Oh, God.
Threatened to kill his own son. And it's not a thing of the past. In 2019, Walker talked about
What an
choking his
ad.
employees. Now his own aides admit they fear his mood swings and instability. Herschel Walker is violent. He shouldn't be senator. Georgia Honors responsible for the content of this ad.
A domestic violence call involving U.S. Senate candidate Herschel Walker.
Telling police she was very frightened of Walker.
Shedding new light on incidents of violence.
Walker took out his anger by punching a hole in the door.
Violence against women. He stalked and threatened her. Stalking and threatening a woman.
The former football star's myriad of lies and stunning hypocrisy.
He literally lied under oath.
Repeatedly lying.
Lying about his past.
Lies upon lies.
Can he really be our senator? DSCC is responsible for the content of this ad.
Yeah.
I mean, it is true.
Welcome back to the Georgia Governor's Debate live from our WSB TV studios here in Midtown Atlanta. So let's continue right now, and let's bring in WSB's Condace Presley for our next question.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you, candidates, for being with us tonight. While Georgia may be the best state to do business, a lack of affordable housing, especially houses at that $300,000 price point or below, the lack of those homes threaten to hinder Georgia's efforts to attract even more business to the state. As governor, what is your plan, and this question is for both candidates, what is your plan to create more affordable housing here? Governor Kemp.
Well, I would just tell people it's, first I want to talk about my record. We've given out $750 million in housing assistance grants over the last couple of years. We also just completed over a $100 million grant process so that people could make competitive grants to receive this funding. Organizations like Habitat for Humanity in our hometown of Athens got one of those. They got a great product that they're doing to help with affordable housing issues. The other thing that you need to focus on is making sure that people have economic opportunity in all parts of our state. A lot of this deals with local zoning issues and other things that go on at the local level. My focus is on making sure that people have a good paying job. The 2 historic years we've had for investment and jobs in our state, the projects that we're doing and probably 95% of the jobs that go with them are higher than the county average. Plus, they have good benefit packages, health insurance, 401ks, and other things, giving people the economic prosperity. And that's why we've seen wages go up in our state. We continue to be in the fight with locals right now on workforce housing and other things, especially around our economic development projects in places like LaGrange, where the Hyundai project's going, up in northwest Georgia around the Roper plant and other places. But it's going to take a public-private partnership, state and local, to be able to do that.
First and foremost, the inability
Thank you.
of local
You and Sitting Cow are both
affordable
awesome.
housing is coming about because the state of Georgia will not allow them to. It is illegal in the state of Georgia for local governments to change certain laws. They are not permitted to enforce housing issues. They are not permitted to change certain financing issues. And they have turned to the government again and again for the last 20 years and been turned away by this governor and by this state legislature. And we know that the money that has been deployed in the last few years is COVID money. Federal Democrats delivered that money, not Brian Kemp. And we know that he's currently sitting on more than $400 million in affordable housing assistance to stop evictions and refusing to deploy that money. There's a 60% rejection rate. WSB actually did a very fantastic story about it, so I encourage people to look it up. But let's understand that there are 4 issues in Georgia: affordability, inventory, gentrification, and homelessness. He does not have a plan to address any of those issues directly. By refusing to put money into the state budget to tackle these issues, he is not solving the problem. Piecemeal solutions and stopgap dollars does not mean that you have a plan. And Brian Kemp has failed to do anything on real estate except make money off of it as governor. He's made hundreds of thousands of dollars in real estate and recently told a black radio forum when he was asked whether he would allow local governments to tackle the issue of affordable housing through giving them more control over housing prices. He said no, he didn't want to upset investors. I'm not running for investors, I'm running for Georgians. And when 30% of the housing is being bought out by equity investors, we need a governor who's going to put Georgia families, Georgia workers, Georgia veterans, Georgia seniors first.
Well, obviously, again, Ms. Abrams continues to attack my record because she doesn't want to talk about her own. I did not say those things, by the way. It sounds to me like she wants to be able to run the private sector businesses that are out there. But listen, the federal money we were using is because our state was open when Stacey Abrams wanted more lockdowns. We didn't have to use federal money for lost revenues. We could pour that money back into local communities, which is what we've been doing.
What was the death rate in your state?
For rural broadband grants, for infrastructure grants, because we were open when Stacey Abrams criticized me for that decision, and people on both sides of the political aisle were. But you know what? I was fighting for you. I was going to simply give you the choice on whether you wanted to go back to work or not, whether your kids could go back to the classroom. She criticized that decision as well.
I'm happy to talk about my record. I paid off the medical debts of 68,000 Georgians who were trying to decide between whether they could afford health care or housing. I put Wi-Fi devices in 180 different communities, rural communities throughout Georgia, not using federal money, but raising money myself because I knew it was an issue. And I know that when it comes to COVID, we need someone who operates not with gambling with our lives, leading to 38,000 dead, including 1 in every 100 residents in Hancock County. I simply urged caution. And we should want a governor who's going to put caution above political points. We should want a governor who wants to look at the science and understand what's going to happen with our families. Because yes, we wanted caution. No one wanted lockdowns. No one likes lockdowns. But we do want people to survive. And as we head into, unfortunately, yet another challenge in the state of Georgia, where we have RSV on the rise, 75% hospitalization rates in children's hospitals across the country, COVID resurging, we have the flu rising. We are about to lose a hospital in the state of Georgia, the 6th hospital under the same governor. The Atlanta Medical Center survived 120 years, but could not survive 4 years of Brian Kemp. We need a governor who puts priority on not only solving small issues, but thinks long-term about how do we invest in our people. And I want to take that $6 billion surplus that Georgians have provided and invest that money in housing, healthcare, education, and making a good living.
Governor.
Well, I'll just say, obviously, we're one new COVID variant away from Miss Abrams wanting to lock our state down, because that's exactly what she said. The pressure on her, just like all the other liberal state governors that were out there locking their states down. You had liberal state governors and Democrats all around the country. Their kids were out of the classroom for a year longer than our state. You remember when Joe Biden made a big deal about the United States of America being back to pre-pandemic unemployment levels. Georgia did that 9 months before the rest of the country did, because we gave you the choice. Miss Abrams doesn't want you to have a choice. She wanted to mandate the vaccine. She wanted to mandate masks. She sided with the National Teachers Union over you of getting your child back in the classroom. I have been fighting for you. I haven't worried about what other people are saying. I've been focused on the people of this state, making sure they could go to work and their child was in the classroom, and that's where the data and the science says they needed to be.
Ms. Abrams, a final word on this.
38,800 people died in the state of Georgia. We have one of the highest death rates in the nation. I didn't say we wanted to have lockdowns. I said we needed caution. And that's what I will always urge. When our lives are on the line, when our children's lives are on the line, we need caution. We need caution in our gun laws to make certain that dangerous people aren't allowed to have weapons. But this governor doesn't believe in caution. He believes in being first. He believes in not taking responsibility. And he does not believe that we should have the responsibility to ensure that everyone has a chance to thrive. In the state of Georgia, yes, we reopen soon, but he passed a law to protect corporations by making it illegal for workers to sue their bosses if they didn't have access to protection. I will always stand on the side of Georgia workers, Georgia families, and Georgia children. I will always operate with caution, with science, and with common sense. No one wants lockdowns. No one wants to have to shut down the economy, but we should never put anyone's life on the line just to be first.
Briefly.
Well, I just feel like I need to have time to answer this whole gun, firearm question, because she keeps bringing it up.
All right, let's talk guns.
We haven't asked, the question hasn't been asked. Let me tell you something. The law right now is the same as it was 2 years ago about who can lawfully carry a weapon or not. For Ms. Abrams to say that the legislation that we signed to let you protect your family and your businesses through your Second Amendment rights is just absolutely not true. People that illegally can't carry guns, the law's the same as it was before constitutional carry passed. And I got news for you. The criminals, they don't care what the laws are. They already got the guns. The problem was law-abiding citizens couldn't get a dang permit from the local government because governments were shut down. They were slow paying the permitting process. The law is still the same that's out there. And all I'm doing is giving people the ability, if they would like to conceal carry to protect themselves, their property, and their families. And the record is that Ms. Abrams, when she was in the General Assembly, she co-sponsored legislation to actually confiscate your guns. So not even give you the ability to get the permit, she was going to come and take your guns. That's what people should be scared of.
Mr. Kemp, once again, is mischaracterizing what I've said and what I've done. At the time, we were talking about assault weapons after more children had been murdered in their classrooms and families were terrified for their future. I believe in making sure we can protect the Second Amendment and protect second graders. And Mr. Kemp apparently doesn't understand the gun laws in Georgia. Georgia had a background check that was part of the concealed carry permit law. 5,000 people were denied access to concealed carry permits because they went through that process. Law enforcement begged him not to eliminate the concealed carry permit because Georgia has some of the most porous laws in the nation when it comes to guns. We are a state that does not have a waiting period, which is why a young man was able to secure a weapon and kill 6 Asian women in 3 different locations in less than 2 hours. And in the same year, this governor tried to weaken gun laws again in response. Luckily, the Speaker of the House, a Republican, said no and denied that bill moving. But we have to have a governor in this state who understands that protecting the Second Amendment should not mean sacrificing Georgians. My great-grandmother taught me how to shoot. Her name was Moo Moo. I know that the person responsible for the weapon is the person holding it. But I also believe in trust but verify. And the only way to verify whether a person is lawful or not is to look at their background. Georgia does not require universal background checks. Through a private transfer or a gun show, you can escape and evade background checks unless the state of Georgia requires them. And so I'm simply asking that we do right by our children and right by our families. I've traveled the state, and the number of people who come up to me and tell me about gun violence in communities that have never seen it before because people have weapons, don't have training, don't have responsibility, and know there are no consequences, that makes all of us less safe. And we need a governor who's willing to put safety before the NRA.
Well, I would just remind people at home that there was actually sheriffs and law enforcement at the bill signing that supported this legislation. What Ms. Abrams is doing is trying to scare everybody at home. If you remember earlier, she talked about Music Midtown canceling. Well, Dragon Con was in Atlanta. They had twice as many people there. They didn't cancel. There was no issues. The Democratic National Committee right now is trying to land the Democratic Convention in the city of Atlanta.
Republicans say Dragon Con.
If things are so bad, why would that be the case? There are over 20 states that have passed constitutional carry, giving law-abiding citizens their legal right to protect and defend themselves and to legally carry. When she's talking about all these other people, they're breaking the law. They're breaking the law because they don't care what the law is. And that's the people that have guns. The people that haven't been able to conceal carry are the ones that couldn't get a permit because of government bureaucracy and people like Ms. Abrams.
30 seconds, please.
Mr. Kemp doesn't understand the difference between a festival held in a public park where guns are allowed without having law enforcement investigate whether you have a weapon, or having an event in a secure private facility where they have the authority to keep weapons out. That's the difference. Dragon Con is inside. Music Midtown is outside. And because of Republicans in the last 20 years of weakening gun laws, we are less safe. And this isn't hyperbole. This isn't even my guess. This is statistics. This is math. And this is death. We have families that have Facebook pages about people walking past their schools, their kids' schools, carrying weapons, and the law enforcement can't do a thing about it because Republicans have weakened our gun laws so much that they can't even ask the question.
Thank you. Moving on now, please, to our panel. Our next question from Univision's Michelle Benitez.
Justin, we're going to keep talking about guns. For Hispanic voters, a top concern is safety, especially children's safety. And throughout the years, there have been bills that propose training for all Georgians in possession of firearms. Nominee Abrams, how would you ensure your own gun safety bills will become law through a General Assembly that would likely remain in control of the other party?
Sadly, because gun violence is so rampant in the state of Georgia, whether you're in Peachtree City or down in Albany or up in the Georgia mountains, gun violence is now so prevalent and so rampant that I believe Georgians, especially legislators, are willing to finally take action. And we've seen this on the federal stage. Democrats and Republicans came together and finally passed common sense gun laws. Georgia is known as part of the lead pipeline. It is so terrible in Georgia when it comes to the weakened gun laws in this state that we were the subject of an episode of FBI Most Wanted, because Georgia is so easy to get a gun and transfer a weapon. And while Mr. Kemp will say it's only people who are not law-abiding, everyone is law-abiding until they break the law. The issue is, how do we minimize where weapons are, but also how do we encourage people to get the training they need? I learned how to use a weapon. I was trained how to use it, and I've chosen not to carry one. But I want anyone who wants to have a gun to do so. But we should have the same set of responsibilities in Georgia that they have in other states. And in the state of Georgia, we do not have waiting periods. We do not have background checks. And we have mental health issues that are not being addressed. And Mr. Kemp mentioned his mental health parity law. What he failed to mention is that it only solves the problem if it's funded, and there is no funding mechanism in the law. The only way to fund mental health in Georgia is to expand Medicaid and bring our $3.5 billion per year back to the state of Georgia. Absent that investment, our families will continue to be in jeopardy from people who are dangerous or who are mentally unstable. And until we fix the gun laws by working together across the aisle, we will not make our community safe.
Well, again, that's just simply not true. Again, Ms. Abrams is attacking my record because she doesn't
live up to my
want us talking about
edgy comedian
wanting to defund the police, eliminating cash bail, and continuing to sit on the boards of organizations that promote that. The Mental Health Parity Act, by the way, it is funded. The initial funding was in the budget last year. You can go look at that for yourself, and the General Assembly and I are committed to doing more in the future to fully implement that. Our executive branch agencies are hard at work as we speak on that. But you know, 2 years ago during civil unrest, when we were on the ground and state law enforcement helping the locals keep the city of Atlanta from being burned down, and also making sure that the protesters that deserved a right to be spoken, to speak their mind for injustice that they'd seen with their own eyes, there was people in that crowd walking with those people with AR-15s on their back, legally carrying weapons. And we had no problems because we were working with them and they were listening to us because they were law-abiding citizens. Also, you know, Dragon Con, there's 60,000 people walking in downtown Atlanta. They're on public spaces every day. They have the Athens Fest downtown in Athens on public spaces. Again, Ms. Abrams is trying to scare you at home about the constitutional carry legislation that would simply let you abide by your Second Amendment rights. And she doesn't want to talk about her co-sponsoring legislation that actually would confiscate your firearm, would confiscate the firearms of those individuals that were walking with those protesters 2 years ago.
I am happy to talk about my record, sir. I've done so repeatedly. But I've not been in office for the last 4 years, so I was not the governor when gun violence went up in the state of Georgia. I was not the governor when 6 Asian women were gunned down and you tried to pass even weaker gun laws in the state of Georgia. I was not the governor at the time when Music Midtown pulled out of the state, citing guns as one of the reasons, because they could not get artists to come because they were not able to secure their persons. Yes, people walk outside and they may make the choice to traverse our streets, but the companies that are hosting these events inside have very different rules and very different opportunities than those hosting events in public places. But what is most concerning to me is that you keep minimizing the death. People are dying from gun violence in the state of Georgia. Children are dying. It is the #1 killer of our children. And if I am asked to do something, I'm going to protect the Second Amendment, protect second graders, and pass common sense gun laws to defend the lives of Georgians. No matter who you are, you should feel free to be safe in your person, safe in your communities, and I will stand on my record to try to make that so every day of my life.
Thank you. Let's move to election integrity.
Simp. Good evening.
Every day we know Georgia sets new records right now for early voting turnout. People are voting. More than 1.5 million Georgians at last count have already voted. So on the record tonight, right now in front of the state, I'm going to ask you all this question, a simple one. Will you support the results of this election even if they do not go your way? Ms. Abrams, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Mr. Kemp.
Absolutely, because we have laws in our state that makes it easy to vote and hard to cheat. Miss Abrams has spent the last 2 years, really the last 10 years, running around telling you that's not the case. She's benefited personally from that running around and scaring people about suppressive votes and suppressive legislation. She filed suit, her group did file suit 4 years ago, cost Georgia taxpayers $6 million to defend Senate Bill 202, which an Obama-appointed judge threw out on every single count. In 2018, when I was elected, we had the largest African-American turnout in the country in our state. And we're seeing just now in the May primary, we had record turnout for Republicans and Democrats, and we're certainly seeing that during early voting. Ms. Abrams' pressure on Major League Baseball and woke corporate CEOs cost us the All-Star game. It's unbelievable she continues to blame me for that loss because it was her that was asking people to put pressure on Major League Baseball to move the All-Star game. And I've been fighting to make our economy great over the last 2 years, which it certainly has been. We had people from New York criticizing us about this bill. We had President Biden criticizing us about this bill. New York just started early voting this weekend. We've been early voting for 2 weeks in our state. So in Georgia, it's easy to vote and hard to cheat, and I'm committed to keeping it that way. And I'm the one that's been truthful and honest with you from day one about all of these issues.
Mr. Kemp has indeed been honest. He has spent 16 years attacking the right to vote in Georgia. 8 years as Secretary of State, where he held 50,000 voters hostage, 70% of whom were African American. He erroneously removed 360,000 people from the rolls during one of his infamous purges. Our lawsuit was not against SB 202. It was a lawsuit based on the 2018 election, and based on that lawsuit, we saw dramatic changes to voting laws in the state of Georgia, and I am proud of that lawsuit. That lawsuit compelled the state of Georgia in 2019 to fix our absentee ballot rules, to address challenges with the exact match issue, to address issues with purging. And by doing so, we saw record turnout in 2020 and 2021. And what Brian Kemp said was that he was upset about the results of that election, that he wasn't upset. He knows there was no fraud. He was upset about the results. And the only results he could have been upset about was the record turnout of black and brown voters, of seniors, of young people, of people who were being kept out of the system. I am proud that I've spent 30 years of my life defending the right to vote, defending access to the right to vote. The right to vote is sacred to me. My father was arrested at the age of 14, helping to get black people registered to vote. And it is an abomination that SB 202, a law that has allowed racist, white supremacists to challenge the legal authority of citizens to vote, is being held up as some sort of native good. It is a terrible law that has already sent people home from the polls, people who were denied the right to vote. The fact that people are voting is in spite of SB 202, not because of it. It was never about making sure that we had fair elections in Georgia. It was about gaming the election for Brian Kemp so he could keep people out of the polling place. And I am proud of every Georgian who is showing up every day to make your voices heard.
Well, again, that's just simply not true. Ms. Abrams knows that. When I was Secretary of State, I created one of the first in the country full online voter registration where people could go to our website on their phone, register to vote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not even have to talk to anybody to be able to do that. I've pushed more accessibility for our elections. She never talks about Senate Bill 202. We actually added days for people to vote on the weekend. I had a guy that texted me his voter sticker today. He said it was the coolest thing. I went to Mass and then I went and voted for you. So for Ms. Abrams to continue to try to manipulate and scare people at home and get them to believe that this is a state where it's hard to vote in is just outrageous. And things that we have done to keep our rolls, our voter rolls secure in the state, it's required under the Help America Vote Act, federal legislation. And yes, I was upset about the results of the election because Democrats won all races and they have all three branches of government in Washington, D.C., and it's led to 40-year high inflation, a disaster at the gas pump because of bad domestic energy policy, a disaster at the border where every governor like myself is dealing with fentanyl overdoses and human traffickers being
Took this long to say
fentanyl.
border.
And that's what I'll continue to fight
missed
against.
one.
Ms. Abrams, if you could have a brief response before we get to closing statements.
Let's be clear.
Kind of surprising.
That the voter suppression that I'm talking about is being felt by Georgians every single day. There was a college student who was turned away from the polls because of SB 202, because she was challenged. No one could tell her what the challenge was, just that she didn't have the right to vote. She could have voted a provisional ballot, but she didn't want to because she didn't know that her vote would be secure. There's an 87-year-old who could not get her absentee ballot for her husband because the process is now so much more complicated. And I've spent this year traveling the state talking to disabled voters who are so upset because of the new hurdles they have to traverse. SB 202 was not designed for voters. It was designed for politicians, and unfortunately, for too many, it's working.
Thank you. It is now
Roy
time
Figaro,
for closing statements.
Cocky Talk. Good evening.
Flew by, didn't it? Each candidate will have 90 seconds, and once again, we determined the order through a coin toss. First, Leader Abrams.
Well, I want to thank Georgians for listening tonight, and I want you to know that I am ready to get to work for you on day one. I have the skills and the track record to get the job done. Under Brian Kemp's 4 years in governor, crime has gone up, 6 hospitals have closed, housing prices are skyrocketing, and communities are in turmoil. They are worried about their rights and they are worried about their futures. But I want to do better by Georgians. I want to put you first every single day. I want to be the leader who invests our $6.6 billion surplus, money brought to this state by hardworking Georgians and by federal Democrats who stepped up to serve all of us. I want to expand Medicaid, bringing home our $3.5 billion a year so that our veterans get access to health care who are currently being denied, that our seniors who are a few years shy of Medicare need and get the help that they need. I want to eliminate the disability waiting list with 7,000 people on it who are being held in institutions instead of in their homes. I want to defend us against danger by strengthening our gun laws, but I also want to defend our rights as women by eliminating the abortion ban and restoring a woman's right to control her body. I've spent the last 15 years as a state leader. I've spent my life as someone who believes in doing right by people. I was raised by my parents to do right. And what we need today is for you to do right. I'm asking for your trust and your vote. I'm asking for you to go to stacyabrams.com/vote to learn how to vote early. And I want you to know that polls do not see you, but I do. And the only poll that matters is the poll at the ballot box. Thank you so much.
Elder Rose, good evening.
Well, first of all, I want to
thank closing
WSB
statements
for having
here
us tonight. Thank the panelists for your questions. You know, when I ran for governor, I made a very simple promise to people. I told them I would put them first, ahead of the status quo and the politically correct. Shortly after I was sworn in, I promised all Georgians I'd work hard every day for them as their governor, whether they voted for me or not. And that's exactly what I've done. I'm so optimistic about the future of our state. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the history of our state. We got the most people ever working in the history of our state. And we're seeing economic opportunity, no matter your zip code or your neighborhood, because we've been focused on strengthening rural Georgia and many other things. Unfortunately, Stacey Abrams said, we live in the worst state in the country. Well, Marty, Jarrett, Lucy, Amy Porter, and I, we don't believe that. We believe we live in the greatest state in the country to live, work, and raise our families. And that's why I'm asking for your vote and support on or before November the 8th to keep it that way. Thanks again for having me. I'd be honored to have your vote. God bless.
Thank you both on behalf of Georgia voters. Thank you both very much for being here with us tonight at WSB. And this wraps our time. Early voting continues through Friday, November 4th. Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th. And here at Channel 2, we will have complete election coverage for you on Channel 2 and at WSBTV.com. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Justin Farmer. Enjoy.
There you have it. That is the Georgia gubernatorial debate. If you missed it, it will be up on my YouTube. You can go back and watch the entire thing. We've got one more debate, and that is Bulldog and Hassan on Wednesday. That is the New Hampshire Senate race. That is on Wednesday. That is the third of their debates. We missed the first two. Get the third one. And that covers pretty much every Senate race that had a debate. We actually didn't get one in Nevada. With Catherine Cortez Masto and Adam Laxalt, they could not agree to a date to debate. Chainsaw, welcome. Good evening. Did I miss saying hey to anybody? But this is the Troll Patrol. If you're new here, we usually do a nightly rundown of the news, and we're going to do that. Come back from the other side of the break. Let me run down what we're going to be talking about. Apparently, Lula has won the election in Brazil. That's what the chat is telling me, and I trust my chat. Usually they're pretty spot on. But we are going to be covering the Brazilian election. Fuckery was afoot. I've got some wild video of a pro-Bolsonaro congressperson in Brazil actually threatening voters with a gun. Several accusations of voter intimidation. We're going to talk about the stampede in Seoul, South Korea. Over 140 people have died, crushed in a stampede. Twitter flooded with slurs following the takeover by Elon Musk. GM and Ford are assessing whether they will continue to run ads, which, you know, it's kind of Musk's competition. The whole car business thing. OJ has thoughts on Elon, so of course I want to hear what OJ has to say about Elon. Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked with a hammer. Obama actually talked about that in one of his speeches. A clip of Obama going viral from that speech. An Ohio congressional candidate has been accused of stolen valor, but that is probably not going to sink his campaign, even though the national GOP has pulled out from supporting him. We're going to watch Chris Christie tell a panel of women that abortion isn't important. Fortunately, we've got a couple of different cop shootings to talk about. One is an update. The J.M. McMillan shooting in Gulfport. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. We're going to talk about how video footage apparently proves that he was shot in cold blood by the cops. We have a shooting out of Kentucky where the police department actually just set up a sniper and took out somebody having a mental health issue. We've got some of the video that they didn't know that neighbors were taking. We're going to hear what the police department has to say. We're going to hear what the family has to say. Plus, a deputy has been accused of selling illegal guns because, of course, he has. So what I do is I play the ads on Twitch all at once, so you get them. You don't get any break in the content. I'll play my ads. If you're a subscriber, I get to go take a tinkle and refill my drink. We'll talk about all those stories and more on the other side of the break here on the Troll Patrol live. Hi, I'm Justin FREAKIN. I'm a leftist broadcaster and comedian, not liberal, leftist. And despite what you may have heard from right-wing propaganda, George Soros isn't handing out Soros bucks and funding people like me. There are no Koch brothers, Mercers, or any number of right-wing think tanks funding content on the left side of the spectrum the way they fund people like Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, and Dennis Prager. And YouTube doesn't monetize videos that are controversial or deal with politics unless you're someone like Steven Crowder. So this is an ultimatum. Become a patron. Support my Patreon, where I'm going to become a right-winger and get some of that easy money. You know for a fact that I could be bigger than Charlie Kirk or Jesse Lee Peterson.
Amazing!
All I have to do is talk about how I used to be an SJW snowflake, but the left went too far with their cultural Marxism, and Republicans are stupid enough to buy it, even though this video exists. And you know I'm right, so give me your money or I'm selling you out.
We live in turbulent times. The media is full of deception, conspiracy theories, and fake news. Now, more than ever, it is important to ensure you're getting information from a source that's freaking reliable.
I'm Justin Mullins, and this is the Freakin' News.
Get a breaking or interesting story with a humorous twist in about a minute weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, and more.
All right, so this is our normal time that we come on. You weren't supposed to see your new meme yet. Hold on. We're gonna do the countdown. We're gonna go up for you. Nancy Pelosi on here. That's the scariest part. That's the scariest part of the Halloween countdown.
This is the Troll Patrol live with Justin Freakin'.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol live. It's a freaking Sunday. Is it Halloween Eve? The spookiness is out. I was haunted on the Friday Night Freak Show on Friday. Chainsaw, good evening. Thank all of you fine people for joining me for the Georgia gubernatorial debate earlier. It was about what we expected, I assume. Far more tame than other debates that we have watched this season. Well, the news portion of the show just started. We did watch the Georgia gubernatorial debate between Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about, including the Brazilian election. Fortunately, we've got some cop death we got to cover. Man shot by a Kentucky police department. Family is speaking out. Apparently, they just came in and sniped him while he was having a mental health episode. The family called the cops to protect him. We got an update on the Jahim McMillan shooting in Gulfport. This was the one that was outside of a Family Dollar. Police accused him of pulling a gun on them. That didn't happen. Of course it didn't. Chris Christie is going to tell a panel of women that abortion isn't important. I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Twitter flooded with slurs following Elon Musk's purchase, the finalization of which took place on Thursday night. O.J. Simpson's got thoughts on Elon, so we're going to have to play what O.J. has to say. GOP congressperson was grilled this morning on Face the Nation over the attack on Paul Pelosi. Apparently some nut job with a hammer broke into the Pelosi house and has been charged with attempted murder. An Ohio congressional candidate has been accused of stolen valor, but is still probably going to win. That's the sad shape of affairs that we have here in this country. On that one, I'm gonna start packing my bong because I'm not high enough for this shit. As if the Chris Christie thing wasn't enough to make me want to get high. We're going to hear from Obama. Apparently he stuck his neck out for Democrats, going out and campaigning, gave a fiery speech, and the libs of Twitter have been lining up. By the way, I'm back on Twitter. If you got a follow from me, Justin FREAKIN, it is me. I have I assume it's going to be a temporary Twitter until I get my real one back, right? Right, Elon? You're going to give me my real one back. I will avenge you, Mr. Van Gogh. By throwing a Van Gogh at the soup can, the Andy Warhol soup can. Throwing a Van Gogh at the soup this time. RB says in Georgia it's called the gubernatorial debate. I was commenting on his accent. It's the really southern. For those of you that have never been to southern Georgia, it's very swampy. It's the swamp people down there, and it's different. It's a different culture. It's a different kind of person. That's the accent he has. Whereas Abrams is from more the northern part of the state, central part where Atlanta is. Talks more with the Midwestern accent. I don't know where my lighter is. I've lost. Oh, there it is. And they're Valdosta. My first experience down there. I worked for an organization that set up in churches and did like family pictures in churches. Because like I've done broadcasting my entire career except for the one period in time where I did photography. And at one time, you know, I like worked for a newspaper and did photography and did news reporting. I worked for a company that set up in churches and did family portraits. And they sent me down to Waycross, Georgia. Yeah, exactly. Southern Georgia is one giant fucking swamp. You start getting swampy. About an hour south of Atlanta, you start getting a little swampy. But man, you get like 2 hours south. Ooh, boy. The swamp people. I've got a cat that is driving me nuts over here. Oh, dude. Way down in the swamp, indeed, clinically. So that was a while. Oh, I just let the cat out. You get a Smokey then. The Smokey's over here being good. He was sitting there, he was watching the show, he was chilling, whereas Socks was over here at the door, just like throwing a fucking fit. You got your smokes. Where's Warlord at? Did he bail for, what, Hot D? Is that what it is? The Hot D is on tonight. Is that shit over? Was that like the season finale last week? I don't even know. People in your Dragon show. Kids in your Marvel movies. Never thought I'd get to a point where I'm like the old man yelling at Cloud. But then again, like, I was president of the Young Republicans in high school. I feel like that's when I was like my most old man yells at Cloud. Hot D is over now, apparently. As well, I thought I saw, like, I didn't see anything about it. Like, I saw like a YouTube video that said like episode 10 review, and I'm like, well, if it's episode 10, it's probably the last one. It's like on prestige shows like that, you're even lucky if you get 10 episodes. They've been doing like 6, 8. So getting a 10-episode season of something like that's probably pretty good. The top story tonight is really Brazil, but let's go ahead and get this out of the way because... Nope. Told me. Go ahead and get this one out of the way. We need to cover in South Korea. 2 college students are identified as first American victims of South Korean stampede, a crush that killed 153 people. University of Kentucky nursing student and aspiring international businessman, both 20. How are you a 20-year-old and aspiring international businessman? Then again, he's in Seoul, South Korea. Maybe he's doing some deals. Both of them were 20 and they died during a nightmare Halloween celebration. 2 American students were among the 153 killed at a Halloween festival in South Korea. Annie Geske, 20, a junior at University of Kentucky, was confirmed as a victim on Sunday afternoon. The others have been named as Steve Blessey of Marietta, Georgia. He was a junior at Kennesaw State University. He was also 20 years old. Both were studying abroad at the time of the incident. 2 other University of Kentucky students are still in South Korea but have been accounted for, according to university representatives. Hours after a tragic passing was reported, the family of Stephen Blessey, also 20, said that they had been notified that he was among the 156. Apparently the death toll has risen. He was a junior at Kennesaw State University in Georgia. The incident happened as a crowd at a Halloween event became unruly and surged, which triggered a deadly stampede. Roughly 100,000 people were present for the South Korean event. Good-looking cake. Representatives from the University of Kentucky, 2 other students were also studying abroad. I don't like that this story is kind of geared towards these 2 Americans. It's a Daily Mail article. What the hell? You can see this is an officer who was reporting on the incident.
이 중에서 사망이 149명, 부상자 76명, 부상자 76명 중에는 중상이 19명, 경상이 57명
that his hand is visibly shaking.
부상자 중 중상자가 사망으로 전환. 특히 피해자 대부분이 10대에서 20대이며.
I mean, I'd probably be nervous too, and I'm used to talking to people. What the crowd looked like. Onlookers, police, and paramedics gathered where dozens of people suffered cardiac arrest in the popular nightlife district. And I'm going to butcher the name of Taewon. Some 1,700 emergency workers were deployed from across South Korea to respond to one of the deadliest crowd crushes in recent history, including about 520 firefighters. More footage overlooking the street showed dozens of emergency responders working desperately to administer CPR to victims lying on the street. See the aftermath in these pictures. At least 19 of the people killed were foreign nationals. I looked around for some video, but like, yeah, probably the ones that we would be interested in watching would violate TOS. Usually, I grab the Daily Mail because usually it has all the pertinent shit in it. They're very tabloid-esque, but they'll usually have everything embedded inside of the story. Brazilians began a tense wait for results of their down-to-the-wire presidential runoff election after voting closed in the divisive showdown between incumbent Jair Bolsonaro and former leader Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Lula's Workers' Party cried foul on Sunday over police roadblocks it alleged were aimed at suppressing votes in his strongholds, especially the impoverished Northeast. With 80.9% of voting machines counted, Lula had 50.3% of the vote, compared with 49.7% for Bolsonaro. The Superior Electoral Court reported on its website. Lula, who was president from 2003 to 2010, won the first round on October 2nd, but by a much smaller margin than expected by pollsters. This is not an updated... Lula da Silva narrowly defeats Jair Bolsonaro. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has won Brazil's election after defeating incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro in a razor-close vote. According to the country's election authority, Lula secured 50.8% of the vote. That's what we just said, but like the article didn't actually declare him the winner. Bolsonaro had been leading throughout the first half of the vote count, and as soon as Lula overtook him, cars in the streets of downtown São Paulo began honking their horns. People in the streets of Rio de Janeiro could be heard shouting, "It turned." It was Brazil's most polarizing election since its return to democracy in 1985, after a military dictatorship that Lula, a former union leader, rallied against, and Bolsonaro, a former army captain, invokes with nostalgia. It remained to be seen if Bolsonaro, 67, would concede defeat without proof. He has described the voting system as fraud-prone, raising concern he may not concede, following the example of his ideological ally, former U.S. President Donald Trump. Already gotten ugly in Brazil. This is video of a pro-Bolsonaro congressperson threatening voters with a gun.
Carla Zambelli armada aqui, galera. Carla Zambelli armada aqui, ó. Carla Zambelli armada aqui, galera.
Followed him into a fucking store and shit.
É a Zambelli, é a Zambelli. Olha, Carla Zambelli, ó, gente, armada.
Apparently, this woman is elected to office in Brazil. Pro-Bolsonaro congresswoman aims gun at man in the street as campaigns for Brazil's heated presidential race drew to a close ahead of a runoff vote. One of President Jair Bolsonaro's closest associates was filmed chasing a supporter of rival candidate Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva with a gun on Saturday. So this took place yesterday. Today, rampant allegations of voter intimidation. However, Lula was still able to pull it off. Police accused of pro-Bolsonaro voter suppression in a high-stakes presidential race. Reports of police officers in Brazil blocking at key highways and pulling over buses filled with voters on the way to the polls Sunday gave rise to allegations of voter suppression. This is amid a tense presidential runoff election between Brazil's right-wing president Jair Bolsonaro. Nicknamed Tropical Trump. Actually, like, if that's his nickname, I had not heard that one. We're reading from Forbes right now. I follow politics pretty closely, and I hadn't heard that one. However, foreign affairs are also not my thing. Tropical Trump.
Come on, man.
So between Bolsonaro and leftist former president Lula da Silva, that could steer the country in dramatically different directions. Brazil's Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes, the head of the country's election agency, has ordered the highway police chief to prove officers weren't violating election rules to help Bolsonaro. Now I can't say it right. Bolsonaro in the election. This is according to the New York Times. The highway police had stopped more than 550 buses across Brazil by Sunday afternoon. An anonymous federal highway officer told the Times, citing internal data during the first round of voting earlier this month. During the first round of voting earlier this month, the agency stopped nearly 300 buses. Moraes told a reporter Sunday that despite the interruptions by police, election officials' preliminary investigation found all the buses reached polling stations, saying they didn't have any voters who didn't vote because of the operations. Apparently, police agreed to stop the operations by Sunday afternoon. Yay, Lula, though. If you got a follow from Justin FREAKIN, that is indeed me. That is indeed me. Still want my original one back, Elon, but this one will do for now. Yes, it's really me. Have a freaking news extra. World's dirtiest man dies after bath. I'm back on Twitter, but I want my original Twitter back. I want Mr. Justin FREAKIN. Because Elon says he's going to free political prisoners on Twitter. So by God, I am expecting to get out of Twitter jail, finally, after my account was permanently suspended. I can tell you that following Elon's takeover of the Twitter, neo-Nazis, anti-Semites, and the N-word Twitter just hours under Elon Musk, the very first hours of Musk's stewardship. OS Music, good evening. I don't even remember now. It was back in 2019. I was mass reported by, white supremacists, anti-Semites, neo-Nazis. I really like to punch the hornet's nest, whack it with a baseball bat. Very first hours of Musk's stewardship of Twitter have been dominated by users relishing their ability to use profane slurs and racial epithets. Minutes after Elon Musk became Twitter's official owner, the platform was filled with vile hate speech as users celebrated. I also saw Tim Pool tweeting out ivermectin. Somebody dunking on him this is the supposed free speech they wanted. This is what they do with it. Very first hours of Musk's stewardship of the social media platform have been dominated by his supporters, relishing their ability to use profane slurs and racial epithets, and a torrent of racist, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, homophobic, transphobic hate speech continued Friday morning. Content warning? Oh, somebody has indeed censored it already, so I don't have to worry about it. Musk's first act as owner of the company was to fire its top executives, including the CEO, Twitter's longtime head of legal, police, trust, and safety. Many read this as a sign that Musk will be taking a much more laissez-faire approach to the type of content allowed on the platform. I am indeed not high enough for this. Many of the earlier tweets have been deleted and some of the accounts suspended, indicating that Twitter's moderation policies remain in place. However, those systems are being harshly tested on Friday morning as a search of the latest tweets for a variety of hateful phrases shows a seemingly unending stream of toxic content. Musk on Thursday tried to reassure advertisers that Twitter would be warm and welcoming. Gav Live 1, welcome. Thank you for being a freaking follower. So glad to have you here. Musk on Thursday tried to reassure advertisers that Twitter would be warm and welcoming to all, adding that it would not descend into a free-for-all hellscape where anything can be said with no consequences. So Elon trying to play a little damage control. Meanwhile, some of his rivals may have other reasons for not running ads besides not wanting to be featured with Nazis and anti-Semites. GM and Ford says they aren't running Twitter ads as they assess changes under Elon Musk. However, the charges of anti-Semitism and hate speech could be a good cover for Ford and GM not to advertise, when the main reason is because they are competition with Musk due to his ownership of Tesla. Though he's not the founder, he bought the rights to call himself that. Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter has many users worried about changes to the site under the mercurial billionaire. Always loved the word mercurial. I fuck it up a lot. Mercurial. Including big corporate advertisers, auto giants General Motors and Ford were among the first to say they won't be putting ads on the platform until they understand the scope of those changes. We are engaging with Twitter to understand the direction of the platform under their new ownership, the Detroit-based automaker said in an email statement late Friday. As is the normal course of business with a significant change in a media platform, we have temporarily paused our paid advertising. Our customer care interactions on Twitter will continue. Ford is not currently advertising on Twitter, said spokesman said Deep. Spokesman said Deep. No, seriously. The spokesman's name is Said Deep. Said Deep. What a fantastic name for your spokesperson. We will continue to evaluate the direction of the platform under the new ownership. Like GM, it will also keep engaging with Ford customers on the site. The moves coincide with Musk's attempt to claim Twitter advertisers or to call. I'm just Said Deep. To calm Twitter advertisers who may be worried that his comments are being free speech abolitionist. His comments about being a free speech abolitionist mean that the site will be more welcoming to extremist viewpoints, racism, and broadly offensive content. Musk said Twitter can't become a free-for-all hellscape. A content moderation council with widely diverse viewpoints. What he says will set the new ground rules on the platform. But, of course, we've reported on Musk's labor violations in the past and how shitty he has been to workers. He pulled another one. And another one. Elon Musk fired Twitter execs, including CEO, I always fuck his name up, Parag Agrawal, for cause in a bid to avoid paying out tens of millions in severance. Elon Musk fired top Twitter execs for cause to avoid severance payments. He fired CEO Parag Agrawal and 3 other executives on Thursday as he completed his takeover. They were in line to receive up to $122 million in payouts. And in all honesty, him doing it to the top executives, I don't really care. They probably didn't even deserve that fucking money. Phoebe, good evening. Elon Musk fired top Twitter executives for a cause. A person familiar with the matter told the information that Musk dismissed the executives to try to avoid severance payouts and unvested stock awards. Now, the rank and file managers and shit, and the people doing the fucking hard work and heavy lifting at Twitter, if they got fucked over, then I'm upset about it. And Elon Musk probably fucked them over too. But the top ass executives, including the CEO, I will not shed a tear about and actually encourage Elon to fuck them over. Good evening, Tones. So glad to see you. Musk repeatedly lambasted Twitter's operations and their executives in the months before closing his deal over the number of fake accounts. His relationship with Agrawal in particular quickly soured, with the pair trading blows on Twitter and over text messages. Here is some right-wing, I guess, comedian somewhere outside of Twitter headquarters posing as a laid-off Twitter employee. I'm already laughing because it's a really weird wig. This was shared out by the Charlie Kirk Show. I don't know what to expect from this. Rahul Ligma poses as laid-off Twitter employee. Trick media outlets. Lick my balls.
Who gave these? My director. And who's your director? Worried. The director. I don't think I was worried for. I don't know. Everything's changed very quickly. Very quickly. This is a company that I worked at for 6 years, and everything's suddenly changed. Talking, right? And it makes me worry about the future. Yeah. You can see. It makes me worry about the future of celebrity conservatorships, like when Britney happened.
Michelle Obama wouldn't have happened.
Elon Musk Twitter. I don't know.
Elon Musk
right? This used to be a town square.
You know, Obama in 2008 wouldn't have happened without
my director.
This is sad.
Free speech is when a public company.
Right-wing comedy, ladies and gentlemen.
Dog. Not like one guy owning a company.
We're fools? Their audio is shit.
I mean, I even own a Tesla, man. Like, I'm a big fan of like clean energy, climate change, even free speech too. But yeah. Software engineer.
I don't know that the reporters fell for anything, you know?
Did they tell you why you were laid off? Did they give a reason?
They said like no reason, but it's just like restructuring or like no specific reason. One person talked. So there was an HR person in the beginning, and then one person, talking.
Is that a wig or is that his real hair? Because if that is real hair, then mad props. You have nice hair. I would like to touch it.
R-A-H-U-L?
Yeah.
What's your last name? L-I-G-M-A. L-I-G-M-A.
I mean, there might be a reporter there, but I mean, that doesn't mean that they ran with that story or anything. That's just sad. Right-wing comedy is sad. Right-wing comedy is so... Anyone who votes for who? What? People come in here and just say shit, and I'm like, what? What are you talking about? We're talking about Twitter right now. But hey, Tina, what's going on? How are you this evening? And we're going to continue to talk about Twitter. I want the thoughts of O.J. Simpson. That's what I want to hear about. OJ, tell us about Elon taking over on Twitter.
Let me start off the day by congratulating Elon Musk taking over Twitter. Maybe I can get authenticated. Maybe I can get a blue check. I've tried for years to get that blue check because there's so many fake O.J. Simpson accounts. One of them is the real O.J.
I'm telling you, OJ, I'm with you. There are fake Justin Freakin accounts out there. I want my blue check too. It's apparently really hard to get a blue check. My buddy asked me if I had a blue check. I'm like, no.
J. Simpson, and instead of an O, they have a 0. In any event, there have been a bunch of them, and from time to time, people would say, why did you say this? And I say, I didn't say it. That was one of those fake accounts. And I'm sure a lot of people probably deal with that. So maybe that will come to an end. Maybe that's what held up the sale, too. So many fake accounts. In any event, let me talk about...
OJ Thoughts is usually a bit we do on the Friday Night Freak Show.
About Tom Brady today. Tom Brady. Look, Tom Brady's not the coach of this team. Todd Bowles is, and Todd Bowles is a...
We'll get some football in here, too.
Guy. And he's one of the great defensive coaches in football today. Now, I question...
I don't even fucking know. Apparently Tom Brady's having a bad season and shouldn't have come back. Oh, shit. Elon, though, using Twitter to spread a conspiracy theory about Paul Pelosi. God damn it. LA Times stopping me from going to the story. Motherfucker. I swear I was looking at it earlier. Well, this fucks up clipping it for YouTube. Elon Musk spreads unfounded conspiracy theory about Paul Pelosi. Days after taking control of Twitter, Elon Musk on Sunday posted and later deleted an unfounded conspiracy theory about the attack on Paul Pelosi, the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. On Saturday, Hillary Clinton tweeted a Los Angeles Times story profiling the suspect who was accused of breaking in to the Pelosi's home and attacking Paul Pelosi with a hammer and his far-right extremist views. Scatterbox, welcome, good evening, and happy Halloween to you. The Republican Party and its mouthpieces now regularly spread hate and deranged conspiracy theories, she wrote. It is shocking but not surprising that violence is the result. As citizens, we must hold them accountable for their words and the actions that follow. In response, Musk tweeted Sunday morning to his 112 million followers that there is a tiny possibility there might be more to this story than meets the eye, and posted a link to an unfounded story offering a conspiracy theory about the attack. The story was posted in the Santa Monica Observer, a publication known for spreading misinformation. Musk's tweet was deleted hours later after receiving tens of thousands of retweets and likes. The tweet came hours before the San Francisco District Attorney confirmed Sunday afternoon that the suspect, David DePape, was looking for the House Speaker when he forced his way into Pelosi's home. The Times, in a 2021 editorial, noted that the Observer is notorious for publishing false news. In 2016, for example, it claimed that Hillary Clinton had died and that a body double had been sent to debate Donald Trump. Months later, it reported incorrectly that Trump had appointed Kanye West to a high-level position in the Interior Department. Last year, it reported falsely that sunlight could be a remedy for COVID-19 sufferers and that Bill Gates, a major funder of vaccine research, had been responsible for the polio epidemic. There you have it. I still want back on Twitter. Let me back on, Elon. Let me back on. It's Sunday, so you know we're going to clip from one of the Sunday morning shows. This was a CBS anchor destroying a GOP rep over violence directed at Democrats.
Than people being worried for their lives. But unfortunately, that's where we are. I want to ask you about this when it comes to political violence. On your Twitter feed, you posted this video we're going to show just a few days ago where you're firing a gun and it says, enjoyed exercising my Second Amendment rights, hashtag fire Pelosi. Why is there a gun in a political ad at all?
It wasn't an ad.
Hashtag
I was
or a tweet.
I was tweeting out something that I had just done.
Hashtag fire Pelosi with a weapon.
Well, now
wouldn't a pink slip be more fitting if it's about firing her?
It's interesting, Margaret.
Why a gun?
It's interesting, Margaret, that we're talking about this morning when a couple of years back, when a Bernie Sanders supporter...
It's always that one example.
When a Bernie Sanders supporter shot Steve Scalise, I never heard you or anyone else in the media trying to blame Democrats for what happened. We need to stay focused on what we're all doing.
We did extensive coverage of what happened.
They didn't embrace it.
There's extensive
Nobody
news coverage,
tried to equate Democrats' rhetoric. People that
I'm not talking about your rhetoric. I'm talking about what you posted. You're shooting a gun. Our viewers just saw it.
Yeah, right.
Hashtag fire Pelosi.
Exercising our Second Amendment rights, having
That's
fun.
not a debate about the Second
a gun.
Amendment.
Yeah,
I would love to talk about something other than people being.
We get all the way through that clip. It seemed like it was.
There's extensive
Nobody
news coverage,
tried to equate Democrats' rhetoric. People that
I'm not talking about your rhetoric. I'm talking about what you posted.
I guess we did watch the whole thing. It was enthralling. Good. Excellent job to that reporter. Obama alluded to the attacks during his speech when he was out on the campaign trail for Democrats leading into the midterm election. Several clips by Obama have went viral. We're going to watch a couple of them.
Tactical gear. More people can get hurt. And we're going to be violating the basic spirit of this country. Yes. So, sir, wait, come on. But this is what I mean. This is what I mean. I mean, we're having a conversation. Come on. Sir. I'm not. Sir. Come on. Sir, this is what I'm saying. Look, there is a process that we set up in our democracy. Right now, I'm talking. You'll have a chance to talk sometime soon. You don't have to interrupt each other. You don't have to shout each other down. It's not a good way to do business. It's that you wouldn't do that at a workplace. If you wouldn't just interrupt people in the middle of a conversation. It's not how we do things. And this is part of the point that I want to make. Just basic civility and courtesy works. And that's what we want to try to encourage. So, listen, that's okay. No. Wait. Quiet down. Look, listen, hey, hold up. Hold on a minute. This is.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the dude was trying to say to Obama.
And dressed in tactical gear.
Doesn't have any more of that clip. I think we're gonna watch a different clip over here. I don't know what he was protesting. I don't know what his beef was. So the thing about Obama is like you miss like having an effective speaker, a likable Democrat. There were a lot lacking with his policies. So this was him giving I think this is a different speech now. This is him giving the pitch for Democrats in the midterms.
Some of you here are on Social Security. Some
He
of
gets
your
fired
parents are on
up.
Social Security. Some of your grandparents are on Social Security. You know why they have Social Security? Because they worked for it. They worked hard jobs for it. They have chapped hands for it. They had long hours and sore backs and bad knees to get that Social Security. And if Ron Johnson does not understand that, if he understands giving tax breaks for private planes more than he understands making sure that seniors who've worked all their lives are able to retire with dignity and respect, he's not the person who's thinking about you and knows you and sees you, and he should not be your senator from Wisconsin.
Yeah, where was that fire when you were president, sir? You were willing to compromise with the Republicans.
I mean, the message he's sending is pretty clear. If you're related to him, if you donate to his campaign, you get a deal. If you're not, you're out of luck and you're on your own.
It was Obama out on the campaign trail. That was an event for Mandela Barnes. Campaigning against Ron Johnson in Ohio. In Ohio, a congressional candidate House candidate in Ohio was abandoned by the national GOP after questions about his military service. But he could make it to Congress anyway. This is J.R. Majewski. Ohio congressional candidate J.R. Majewski. House candidate J.R. Majewski has faced scrutiny for exaggerating his military service. The issue continues to dog his campaign, but his supporters are I think that's supposed to be dismissing. Am I high? Dismissing? Dismissing? I think it's supposed to be dismissing. Oh, fuck. The issue continues to dog his campaign, but his supporters are dismissing the controversy. Asked by Insider why he painted a QAnon symbol on his lawn, Majewski replied, "Why does it matter?" 2 weeks out from Election Day, Republican House candidate J.R. Majewski seems to have found a way to explain away his unsupported claims about serving in Afghanistan, at least to his most loyal supporters. "My campaign is not about my military veteran status," the first-time candidate told a crowd of roughly 40 people who had gathered in a Toledo cafe for a meet and greet on a cloudy Tuesday afternoon. That despite Majewski's campaign slogan reading "Conservative Veteran for Congress," with the word veteran highlighted in red. Majewski, 42, has claimed he served in combat and in Afghanistan after the 9/11 terror attacks, but the U.S. Air Force says it has no record of his service there. Military records obtained by the Associated Press instead show he served mostly in Japan before a 6-month stint loading planes in Qatar in 2002. Attendees at the Tuesday event largely consisted of Majewski's longtime supporters and a handful of local GOP officials, most of whom spoke about the importance of defeating Majewski's opponent, the long-serving Democrat Representative Marcy Kaptur. They agreed that despite his dubious claims about his military record, he was still their man.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
This whole did he or didn't he serve in Afghanistan business, I couldn't care less about it, said Tim Fouts, a 67-year-old Republican resident of Toledo. "As far as I'm concerned, he served his country. He served. Marcy, what did you do?" I lived through the swift boating of John Kerry. Still, to this day, I always knew Republicans were hypocrites. To this day, how does somebody who was a draft dodger like George W. Bush get defeated by a military veteran like John Kerry in a race about military service? Politically, so there are signs that Biden won't run, but I'm inclined to think he will. I've kind of been on that side the entire time. I think he will, just because of, you're right, the power of the incumbency and everything. Apparently, like they've like ran the election and Biden would win against Trump again, but like Harris would actually like do better than Biden. Oh, and John Kerry would have been a corporatist just like all the other Democrats. He's the best we could have hoped for in 2004, I guess. But like, I was on the Howard Dean train, but Howard Dean also showed that he was willing to compromise his values later on in his political career. On a panel with a bunch of women, Chris Christie decided to say abortion's not that important.
It's not as important as the economy. That is not an important voting issue. It is.
And Chris, it is. It's number 3 in the polls. And you've also got 62% saying it should be legal in all or most cases. How do Republicans square that?
I don't think they square it, and I don't think that it matters. I mean, look, yeah, it's the third issue, but it's 3.5 times less important than the economy in this race. And I think the Democrats have made a serious strategic error. Remember, too, the intensity of voters matters in a midterm election. And I've seen a number of polls where the intensity of the pro-life side of this is higher than the intensity of the pro-choice side of it. In the end, look, I think people who are voting that as their number one issue had their jerseys on a long time ago, Martha. They were voting Democrat if they're pro-choice, they're voting Republican if they're pro-life. And the vast number of folks in the middle, where that issue is not their number one issue, they're making this decision based on the economy and crime, education, drug abuse and drug overdoses. Those are the things that are affecting them much more in their neighborhood every day. And so I think the Democrats who made this a centerpiece, and as I've been traveling around, I've seen a lot of ads about this from Democratic candidates, I think are going to look back on it and say, they should have come up with a different strategy.
And Maria Elena.
Yeah, because we should always listen to what Republicans have to say about strategy when it comes to Democrats, right? Chris Christie apparently thinks he has a shot in 2024, possibly. I'll believe it when I see it. 2024 is going to be incredibly interesting. Just think about it. This time next year, we're going to be watching primary debates, guys. Are you ready for it? Do you feel it in your bones? This time next year, we will be watching primary debates. 2024 really starts getting kicked off here in a couple months. You're gonna start seeing announcements for candidacies. Because if they're running for president, their mechanisms have to be in place by January of next year. So we're coming up on it. People say they aren't thinking about 2024. No, if they're in the game for 2024, they have already thought about it. Things are already in motion. In January, we will start seeing announcements. This time next year, primary debates will be going on. If it's anything like we have seen in recent years, god damn, we're gonna have fucking 30 or 40 from each side. So I guess as a political content creator and somebody who wants to be a political commentator, it's gonna be really good for me. And these are going to start in like July, August, if not sooner. Maybe August, September. Hopefully I'm wrong. Warlord, are you ready for debates this time next year? When we come back, we've got cop stories. We're going to talk about a sheriff who was apparently illegally selling guns. We're going to get an update on the J. Him McMillan shooting in Gulfport. The family of a man in Kentucky, I only have his last name down here, LeDuc. We're going to hear from the family of a man shot by police. They just brought out a sniper rifle and picked him off. It wasn't a danger to anybody. It's gonna really piss you off. I'm honestly surprised we haven't heard about Trump's plans yet. But I do this to try to prevent everybody from seeing ads on Twitch. If you're not subscribed, you're going to see the Twitch ads right now. If not, you're going to see my ads. I'm going to go refill my drink. I need a little more tea. And we'll do the cop stories on the other side of the break here on the Troll Patrol Live.
We live in turbulent times. The media is full of deception, conspiracy theories, and fake news. Now, more than ever, it is important to ensure you're getting information from a source that's freaking reliable.
I'm Justin Mullins, and this is the Freakin' News.
Get a breaking or interesting story with a humorous twist in about a minute weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, and more.
Hi, I'm Justin FREAKIN. I'm a leftist broadcaster and comedian, not liberal, leftist. And despite what you may have heard from right-wing propaganda, George Soros isn't handing out Soros bucks and funding people like me. There are no Koch brothers, Mercers, or any number of right-wing think tanks funding content on the left side of the spectrum the way they fund people like Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, and Dennis Prager. And YouTube doesn't monetize videos that are controversial or deal with politics unless you're someone like Steven Crowder. So this is an ultimatum. Become a patron. Support my Patreon, where I'm going to become a right-winger and get some of that easy money. You know for a fact that I could be bigger than Charlie Kirk or Jesse Lee Peterson.
Amazing!
All I have to do is talk about how I used to be an SJW snowflake, but the left went too far with their cultural Marxism, and Republicans are stupid enough to buy it, even though this video exists. And you know I'm right, so give me your money or I'm selling you out. For some reason, I thought there was another commercial there. I wasn't ready yet. I didn't have a video for this. I wanted video. I want a local news hit, but apparently the local news not really covering this story, and that's gonna piss me off. Last update was from a week ago. Fuck you guys. Okay, this is from Fox 2 days ago. This is what we want. So I am going to hit the content warning on this one. This is going to piss you off. Tried to give you a meme that goes with the theme here. Train how you fight. Or puppy. You're going to get shot by the cops. We're going to talk about the story of Desmond LeDuc out of Kentucky. Family of man shot by Kentucky Police Department breaks their silence. The Nicholasville Police Department released a statement. We're going to hear from that statement here in a second. LeDuc's family said in a letter released through its attorney that much of what has been said is false. There has been very limited information released regarding the circumstances from Saturday. This was about a week ago. Much of what has been said is false, and the police have done nothing to correct it. Desmond was alone in his house and inside his bedroom when he was shot through the bedroom window by a police officer positioned outside the home. Any suggestion that officers made entry into Desmond's home were threatened inside the home by Desmond and shot Desmond from inside the home, the letter states, is like that's false. With the desire to live last Saturday, LeDuc was struggling with the desire to live last Saturday, and the family called the police to help him, but instead responded by sending a SWAT unit to his house. Here is the local news hit telling the police side of the story.
The family of Desmond LeDuc released a statement demanding answers from law enforcement after the death of their son. Nicholasville police are responding. LeDuc's family says he was struggling with suicidal thoughts, so they called 911 for help around 10 Saturday morning. After an hour-and-a-half-long standoff, LeDuc was shot by police who say he confronted them while armed with a gun. He later died at UK Hospital. Earlier this week, the family released a statement through their attorney calling for more training for officers responding to mental health crises. Tonight, the police department released its own statement saying, quote, the department immediately activated its special response team and crisis negotiation team, which consists of 2 negotiators who have been specially trained in working with individuals experiencing mental health issues. The statement went on to say the department is cooperating fully with Kentucky State Police, which is investigating the shooting.
The violent
born at So I want to show you the video that neighbors took. This is outside of Desmond LeDuc's house. I'll make it full screen here. You can see the sniper. You can see another sniper right there. This is video that neighbors took. You can see they're kind of hiding from the police. I'll watch it again here. You can see a sniper on the ground right there. I don't know which one of them shot. Fuck. You can hear the neighbor saying, fuck. Nicholasville, Kentucky.
Oh, fuck.
It appears these assholes just shot a completely innocent man. Just for no reason. Just for no fucking reason. He was a threat to no one. The same old story, the same old song and dance. Same thing happened outside of a Family Dollar in Gulfport. Family and friends that seek answers as a 15-year-old was killed by Gulfport police.
McMillan was killed earlier this month after an encounter with police there. Those who knew him question the investigation as law enforcement agencies are remaining tight-lipped about it.
Mike McDaniel takes us to Gulfport.
Of course they are.
As family and friends walked into the Lyman Community Center in Gulfport Wednesday,
all I did was cry.
Jayla Agee knew it wasn't going to be easy.
When I walk up in there to see his body, it's going to hit me hard, and I'm not going to be the
We
same.
did this story when it first happened, and I thought it sounded fishy.
McMillan. She saw him just weeks before he was shot in the head by a Gulfport police officer October 6th. McMillan's funeral was an emotional one.
He was there for me a lot, and I was there for him. And I hate how they just took him from me and everybody else like that, because, like, it just happened out of nowhere.
Gulfport police say McMillan and a group of other teens were pointing guns at cars. When officers approached them right outside of a Family Dollar store, police say McMillan was ordered to stop and put down his gun.
McMillan did not comply. McMillan turned both his body and his weapon towards the officer. The officer fired at McMillan.
I'm black and I'm proud.
Since the shooting, there have been protests calling for transparency from the Gulfport Police Department and the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, which is handling the case. Family and friends don't believe the police account and want video released.
We're just trying to get the truth.
Eyewitnesses have said that's not true.
Footage, the police body cam and the store Family Dollar.
Questions of what exactly happened have spread across social media with calls for justice and scrutiny. Wednesday, though, was a day to focus on the memories.
He was a nice and caring person. He always made us laugh.
Memories that make this loss so hard to deal with.
It was unbelievable because, like, why? Why would you do something like that, especially to a child? He was only 15, still had a life ahead of him, and you took that away from him.
4 other teenagers were also arrested in this case, charged with aggravated assault. We did reach out to the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation for more information on this case or to see when more would be released.
We heard from the mom of one of the other kids arrested. She said it's impossible. I don't believe that story. And you know, I understand some moms do bury their heads in the sand. But nothing is adding up with this. Eyewitnesses to the event say that it did not happen the way the cops are saying it happened. Footage is missing from the Family Dollar from that day. Never trust the fucking cops. Never trust the cops.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Do you, coppers? A Philadelphia police officer caught selling illegal guns.
Jim, Jackie, some people are, again, the
pass stricter gun laws. Now, the court documents, they do not show this deputy was involved with the Roxborough High School shooting. However, people still find it troubling the guns he allegedly sold were linked to that incident.
The fact that it was illegal guns gotten from law enforcement, that is pretty shocking and I mean, it's pretty messed up.
People tell us they're disappointed. Federal authorities say former Philadelphia Sheriff's Deputy Samir Ahmad knew he was illegally selling guns and drugs. Part of court filings unsealed allege Ahmad illegally sold a revolver to a man he did not know was an FBI informant. On October 13th, an FBI camera recorded him selling these two loaded guns to the same informant. The FBI and ATF traced those guns back to the September Roxborough High School shooting that killed Nicholas Elizalde. The court filings did not say Deputy Ahmad is a suspect in the shooting itself, nor how he got the weapons. Then last week, federal investigators say they caught Ahmad again on camera selling the informant a gun and crystal meth. The ATF and FBI arrested Ahmad at the sheriff's office in Center City the next day.
I definitely feel like he shouldn't be in any sort.
Those two things don't mix. Guns and crystal meth are a bad combination. I'm very pro drugs. Guns and crystal meth, bad combination.
Sort of position of power anymore.
Until we stop the flow of those firearms that are being diverted underground, we're going to continue to have these problems.
Ceasefire PA sees this crime as another reason lawmakers should adopt stricter gun policies for Pennsylvania.
Shrink the sources, shrink this diversion of the supply of guns, and when we do that and keep them just with responsible gun owners, we're going to save some lives.
The disappointment leaving Sienna Vieira with less faith in justice.
I feel like some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff is usually just swept under the rug and there's not any sort of like position, like accountability for this.
Well, in a statement, the sheriff's office wrote it is cooperating with local, state, and federal authorities. Ahmad is in federal custody here in Philadelphia. Jim?
Without having that.
Oh, no, I can't do any more of that. Now, we're going to finish off tonight with a little Christian nationalism. This is a preacher we've checked in on a couple of times. Texas pastor openly calls on Christian nationalists to impose their values on society. During an interview with Real America's Voice, host Tim Clinton, Robert Jeffries, addressed recent concerns about the rising nationalist movement among
We
Christians.
always put our love for God above everything, even allegiance to our country. But that's not what they're really talking about. Listen carefully. They say they are opposed to people who say America was founded as a Christian nation.
It wasn't. There are people that go to my video where I debated Bryson and we had to read all that shit about Thomas Jefferson that showed how complicated his beliefs were. And they're still like, your own source proved you wrong. I hate these fucking people. They're so goddamn dumb. Oh, you said he was a Christian. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Modest proposal. What are you on about? I've had a few people tonight in the chat just be like talking about some shit I don't even know what's going on. But I'm glad to have you here. Good evening, my friend.
Americans who believe not only in the spiritual heritage of our nation, but believe that we ought to use elections to help return our country to its Christian foundation. If that's Christian nationalism, count me in, because that's what we have to do. And what's so critical about this, Tim, is the left don't mind at all imposing their values.
It's critical Christian theory. No, our fucking values are let everybody do what the fuck they want, motherfucker. That's my values. Just because other people are out here doing whatever the fuck they want, that's not imposing values on you. You get to be your little Christian shithead in your corner of the world. Don't fucking interfere with me. But you get all evangelical about shit. You try to change laws, and you try to impose your shit on me. I fucking shit.
On our country through the election process. They don't mind forcing their pro-abortion, pro-transgender, pro-open borders policy upon our nation.
By pro-transgender, he means we acknowledge they exist and should be left alone and treated as equal members of society. If that's your definition of being pro-transgender, then I'm in. I'm in, sir. What else did you say?
Open borders policy.
Open borders. Once again, record numbers of apprehensions at the border. How is that being open? I do not know what these fuckers are talking about. They live in a different world. Right-wingers are morons.
Upon our nation, but they object when conservative Christians try to impose their values on society at large. It's complete hypocrisy.
No, you're the one being hypocritical. You're the one making up shit. Nobody wants to impose values on you. No one wants to stop you like... It's been a night, it's been a day, it's been a wild time here in USA. I mean, I support open borders, but I'm not a policymaker in the Democratic Party, and I am definitely not where the party is in terms of enforcement. Just like I support defunding the police, but like I am in the very small minority inside of the Democratic Party or the people who caucus nominally with the Democratic Party. Eat this bag of dicks. Yeah, we're far left of the Dems, and we like to kick authority in the balls.
He's kicking authority in the balls.
That's what we like to do around. I think Robert Jeffries over here is smoking crack.
I was on crack.
Been hanging out with Michael Pitt. The shoot up drugs, not schools thing, it's just a joke. I don't actually advocate for children shooting up drugs. Unless, like, you know, if you have the urge to shoot up a school, I would much rather you shoot up a drug. So I guess, like, I'm not joking. A modest proposal. I just... Glad to have you here. Glad to have you here, friend. Tomorrow night we're going to do a little bit of news. We're going to play a spooky game. Sorry, all you idiot Republicans.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Yes, we do.
Hey, Justin, are you trolling?
So far, we have a vote for Five Nights at Freddy's. Could play one of the Dark Pictures anthology games, or the other one was Resident Evil 3. We're gonna play a spooky game. Turn off all the lights in here. You just see my face. Play a spooky game because it's Halloween. That's what I'm gonna do for Halloween. Still gonna get a troll patrol though at 8 o'clock. Promise that. Then Wednesday we're gonna do the Don Bulldog, Maggie Hassan debate for the Senate race in New Hampshire. That is on Wednesday night. A week from Tuesday is the fucking election. So buckle up for that, buckaroos. Spooky Halloween thing, exactly. I've been playing like Resident Evil 6 with my buddy for the spooky Halloween thing. But I'm gonna do spooky Halloween thing on stream. So far, Five Nights at Freddy's is win. Like, if you want me to play one of the Dark Pictures anthology or Resident Evil 3, speak up. Those are the other options. I've got other spooky games, but those were like the ones that were like the top of my mind. Apparently, Five Nights at Freddy's, a bunch of jump scares. That sounds cool. It seems like a game I would be able to make a lot of funny comments about, get some good commentary out of. I think I've played this animal video before, but I think the stream might have been fucking up that night, so you get it again just because you should see this if you haven't seen it. Here's a family of mice having tea. The hell are you talking about, proposal? My friend. I thought about watching an old school Halloween movie. I actually asked my buddy the other day. I was like, "Do you think I could be Svengoolie?" And he was like, "Yeah, you could totally pull off Svengoolie for Halloween." I'm like, "No. Like, do you think I could be Svengoolie? Like, this dude dies, I'll take over. I could be Svengoolie." And he was like, And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. The whole spooky dude is a whole aesthetic. I don't live the lifestyle. I would be a poser playing Svengoolie. People would see through. They would know I'm only Halloween decorations like 2 weeks before Halloween. That I don't put them up in July like people who are really into the Halloween. Oh, they would know I don't put the pumpkin spice in my coffee until a couple weeks before. I think the housemates already got the Christmas shit coming. There's peppermint mocha creamer in there, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. They cute little mice having tea. I think the stream was fucking up the night I played this, so I left it in my reservoir to be able to pull out sometime just because I thought it was cute. You've already seen it. For those of you who don't know, like maybe you're new here, I always play an animal video at the end. Usually it's a cuddly animal. Might not be though. Might not be. Might be some mice having tea. You never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes it's not a video. Sometimes I'll hit you with man, what was that one thing? There's a Midwest animal sanctuary that lets you have a night with a puppers they've been taken care of, like just to get them like out of the sanctuary and let them have an adventure. Like they'll send you to dinner to a dog-friendly restaurant with the dog, and then they'll pay for you to have a hotel room with the dog. And they dress it up for the dinner, and then like they give it pajamas to wear when you're in the hotel room. It's so cute. You can have like one night I spotlighted that. If you're watching on Twitch, let's find us somebody to raid. I don't think it's time for the Plex yet, but I do recommend coming back for Echoplex Media. I think in a half hour. I might be off. They're on the specific time. I'm on the Eastern time. So I get confused on time frames, but I do recommend going back to Echoplex whenever the Plex podcast comes on. I was guest host last week, and it was a lot of fun. I think it was last week. We're gonna go say hey to, I don't think we've ever raided Bread Theory before, so we're gonna raid Bread Theory just because that sounds like fun. If we don't know who they are, find out. They're probably cool if they're Red Theory. Find out. What orgy? The fuck are you talking about? I was like looking for somebody to
You live in sexual anarchy.
Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm Justin Freakin. We'll see you tomorrow night on the Troll Patrol live.